So as far as major motifs are concerned, we found four different ones in Frankenstein the text. The first one that we grappled with was the idea of regret and repentance. We can see this in manifested twofold. There's first the idea that Victor regrets creating his monster, but there's also the idea that the monster regrets driving his creator to eventually die in the Arctic tundra. As you can see, at the end of the text, there's a brief part where the captain of the ship finally meets the monster because the monster is standing over Dr. Frankenstein's dead body and lamenting for what he has done. And of course, because of all of the violence that the monster has caused, Victor several times throughout the text talks about how he wished he had never created them, and even decides not to create a she monster because of all of his crimes. Secondly, there's the whole idea of the creator versus the created. Shelley does this in a really interesting way by bringing Paradise Lost into the mix. There's a point of time where the monster talks about reading Paradise Lost, and he draws several parallels to himself and Adam. He says that he and Adam were both came straight from God. There was no father, in a sense, but unlike Adam, he was not created by a perfect God, and he was not perfect himself. He was ugly. So I think with that we can just see that uh, the whole idea of was what was Dr. Frankenstein's real purpose in creating the monster, and we see that as we continue onward with the third motif, which we decided was the whole idea of knowledge and the acquisition of knowledge, and how the text ultimately concludes that that's not always a good thing, as we see in the very beginning when Frankenstein's teachers kind of push against his old way of looking at science. He kind of sticks his finger in their face and says essentially like, hey, like, no, I'm great and I will discover the mysteries of life. And he does discover the mysteries of life by creating his monster and bringing it to life, but as a consequence, he ultimately sets in motion destruction on the monster's part by killing first his brother, and then his wife slash cousin Elizabeth, and several other people. And then the final point motif that we wanted to talk about with this was this idea of what does being a monster mean versus what does being a man mean. So man versus monster. This kind of came out of our curiosity with the fact that in modern interpretations, the monster and Frankenstein have become one person. Most people who have not read the book believe that Frankenstein is the monster, but that's so. But there is something to be said in that, because, in a way, as the book continues, we see Dr. Frankenstein becoming angrier and angrier, which is making him almost lose his humanity and his ability to ration. Case in point, following the monster to the North Pole with no provisions whatsoever. But at the same time, the monster is becoming more human. Of course, he feels for his cottage people, and then he expresses regret at the end of the book, like we already talked about, for putting his master in that situation. So yeah, those are the four motifs that we came up with, and now Kara will tell you about how we have seen Frankenstein in modern times through cinema and other things. Thanks.